Oh, now we're live. It's so unpredictable. Hey, welcome America to Unscripted. This is the show where we try to entertain and inform you by making fun of the news. And then what we do is we interview the very best and brightest that LinkedIn has to offer. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Averity, which is the best staffing company to work for in North America. Chris Allaire, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for not inviting the brightest or the best of LinkedIn.
Oh, stop it. You're the absolute brightest and best. Okay. Before we get to the news and before we get to you, I don't know if you know this, but every day here in this country is some reason to celebrate. Every day is a thing. Today, I couldn't choose. Today is so many things. October 23rd is so many things. So we're just going to cover three real quick. Today, National Horror Movie Day. I know Tom doesn't give a shit about horror movies, but it's October and it feels like we should get a little Halloween-y. Chris, do you care about horror movies at all?
I don't like horror movies at all.
Do you not like them because they suck, or do you not like them because they're scary?
I was scared to death as a kid of a horror movie.
Which one?
And Salem's Lot.
Oh, Salem.
Which basically changed your life forever, and it did. And now it's just not my thing. So,
The Shining scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, but not enough to not watch them anymore. Not that I'm a huge fan.
I guess it's horror. I don't really look at The Shining as a horror movie.
I think the isolationism in the kids, like I think when you're a kid, kids movies scare you. Like I showed my son Monster Squad, which is not really a scary movie, but it's very kid focused. I think that scares the shit out of people. But Salem's Lot had dead kids in it.
Well, Salem's Lot is scary as hell. I mean, there's nothing like that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I was raised by Freddy Krueger mostly because my parents didn't pay attention to me. Just kidding. But Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I've watched 8,000 times. I think the same thing with Pet Sematary. I love Pet Sematary.
I was gonna say Pet Sematary was mine as a kid. I watched it probably way too young, and the sister, that was brutal. I couldn't sleep nights after watching that because that
scoliosis. And then when the kid gets hit by the 18-wheeler and the shoe flies. My God. And then when he comes back and he cuts Judd's Achilles when he's going up the stairs.
Yeah, brutal. Imagine how bad that hurts.
Horror movie.
Yeah.
All right, so National Horror Movie Day, nobody really cares. This one bothers me, National Boston Cream Pie Day, because I was thinking about this last night. After the Celtics won, this is a thing I do. I go to the opposite team's stuff and start reading about how great we are. Someone referred to Boston as Beantown, and then somebody else goes, nobody calls it Beantown inside of Boston, which is correct. So like Boston baked beans aren't really a thing. Boston cream pie, I don't really find associated with our city at all. Like if you went to a restaurant in Boston and they give you baked beans and Boston cream pie, I was like, here's our cuisine. Wouldn't you be confused by that?
A little bit.
Lobster rolls, roast beef sandwiches, chowder, Sam Adams, you go, this is Boston, but a Boston cream pie. Have you ever had
it's in the name, I guess, but
I know, but why?
I don't know.
I don't think I've ever seen on a menu in Boston.
No, but it's conceptually bizarre that the things that are named after our city have nothing to do with our city.
Yeah.
And then the other one, and this was just it's very nostalgic. I don't know why it gets its own day because it didn't live for very long, but iPod Day. Do you remember the golden?
Who thought of this to put this on as a day?
I have no idea, but the golden age of iPods were between 2000. I looked this up, 2001 and 2010. You have to you got to wrap your head around this concept, which was that prior to the iPod, we all had cassette players. Yes. Then we had the little yellow Sony Discman. And that was great. But again, you're talking about one cassette, one CD. When the iPod came out, it could hold 1,000 songs. Now that doesn't, like in our heads, that doesn't matter. Everything can hold 1,000 songs. But back then.
Oh, the big deal. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. That's why I have the day, apparently.
And it didn't skip.
It didn't
over.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Adding songs was easy. It introduced us to iTunes. You could buy a song for $1. Like that exchange rate makes a lot of sense. One song, $1, one album, $10. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It was a magical time to be alive, the iPod years. And these kids will never get it because every device holds whatever you need it to hold. Back then, this was goddamn life-changing.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised it has its own day, but I'm glad it has its own day.
Oh, yeah. Now you bring up all the good points. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it still a day?
It's still a day. It was invented. The Boston cream pie was invented here.
You know what's going to be funny is we're going to be celebrating this day one time, and no one's going to know what the hell the iPod was.
Well, that's the other thing too. Like the save thing, they think the save icon just looks like that when indeed it's a floppy disk, but nobody knows what a floppy disk is. So now the floppy disk icon is just a save icon. It's not the thing it was. And that's what I brought up.
Right. Floppy disk, yeah.
Anywho, okay, let's get to the news because this is very important. People demand our opinions on these things. We need is two idiots and a guest talking about world news.
Yeah, very informative.
Yeah. All right. Okay, there's a through line to all these stories, which is things I don't understand are losing money. Boeing posts a $6 billion loss on troubled programs. The CEO says the jet maker needs a culture change in a deal with striking machinists. So the article goes on to say that Boeing has been hobbled in recent years by 2 fatal crashes, a criminal conviction, a mid-air blowout, production delays, and a strike most recently. The earnings themselves revealed little new. The company this month had preliminary results, which they're talking about here, and then they're going to cut 17,000 jobs. If you look at this, they are pretty used to losing money, it would seem. Not quite as bad as in 2021, but a $6 billion loss is bad. So I started to think they're going to cut 17,000 jobs. I mean, I know there's so much more that we don't know going into this, but I asked AI to give me the average salary for Boeing employees. Okay. Very top heavy. The executive director is getting $355,000. I don't, is he worth it? Who knows? But look, all the leadership, 159. Now we have a problem with doors blowing off. Let's look at the assembly technician. He's making $17.32 an hour. I am no plane doctor, but I would venture to say that you want to pay the guy that's putting the goddamn doors on more than $36,000 a year. Don't you think?
You think, yeah.
I want to know where's I noticed that on this list there's no director of quality.
Yeah.
It's like
they don't have money.
No, that was the last layoff.
Yeah, we got holes in the side of the airplane. You know what we should do is start laying everybody off.
Oh, 17,000 layoffs. I'm telling you, it's not going to come at the top. It's going to come at the bottom where the guy's making $17 and putting the doors on. This is what I don't understand, just fundamentally, big numbers. And again, there's details, obviously, I don't know. But Boeing has 42% of the market share in commercial airlines. 42%. They have 10,000 planes in their fleet. They carry 90% of the world's cargo. How are they losing money, do you think?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I also know they signed what I do know is that they signed massive contracts with these airlines to build hundreds and hundreds of planes.
Yeah. No. So how would
I don't know the firsthand about when it comes to pricing and the cost of building an aircraft. Nor am I going to look it up or stay in a Holiday Inn Express or try to act like I have any idea what the hell any of this is talking about. But to lose $6 billion on building an airplane, what I do know is that's not good. And they should probably, and I know their CEO, if I'm not mistaken, just started in August.
Yeah. Oh, they overtook. It's like Gerard Mayo with the Patriots. He's overseeing a goddamn nightmare. But it's not as if planes are a luxury. Planes are a necessity today. It ships cargo. It ships people. It ships all kinds of shit. So how, if it's something that you absolutely need, that's very expensive, that I believe is subsidized by the government, do you still lose $6 billion? They say they need a culture change. I don't know that a culture change is
I mean, I think you may be looking at finances somewhere in there. I don't know. It may not be culture.
I don't know if you're looking at a free sandwich Wednesday away from getting $6 billion back on the books.
You do that, and all of a sudden the revenues skyrocket.
That's all. It's morale. It's morale.
Shirt changes everything. So
I just don't understand. Here's another thing, and I rail about this all the time. Boeing does not kill people. Okay, they had 2 plane crashes. I get it. That's horrible. But it's 2 plane crashes in 35 years. Mm-hmm. Cars, imagine anything in your life, it kills more people than Boeing does. Vending machines, lawnmowers, selfies, cows, bees, just name something. It murders way more people than Boeing. So it's not a safety thing. It's just, all right, get it, one door blows off, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. Keep in mind, the guy's making $17 an hour. So what do you expect? Anyway, so Boeing loses money. I have zero understanding of how this is possible. Here's another one. Mm-hmm. Starbucks suspends guidance as sales slumps persists. The coffee chain needs to fundamentally change strategy, the new CEO, Brian Nickel, says. Oh, okay. So this goes on to say it's the world's largest coffee chain. They say that they need to change their strategy. They want to go back to the look and feel of a small community coffee shop. Let me ask you guys, do you like Starbucks?
No.
I do, but I prefer the small coffee house, whatever, because you pay the same amount of money and you get better coffee.
Yes, and I think that's legitimate. the small coffee place, I like pretentious buffoonery. I like foams. I like expensive restaurants. I like to look down on people. So a small coffee shop is like legitimately pretentious, and that's good. Starbucks, I feel, is fake pretentious because you're a chain restaurant, but all the baristas are assholes. The customers are kind of assholes because they think they're better than you because they're in a Starbucks, but you're in a chain restaurant. You might as well be in an Arby's, but you're acting
pretty list.
Yeah, little A-list for me. This is concerning for Starbucks because they were doing pretty well for a while. Look at this in Q4 of 2021, way up, now down 7%. I just wanted to look this up too because we're a Dunkin' Donuts society up here. Look at the distribution between the green is Starbucks, the orange is Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
Starbucks is way better tasting, I think, than Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts is utilitarian. It's there, it exists. It's not very good, but it's consistently shitty in about half the cost.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, like, look where it is. Like the Northeast, you're required to drink and eat Dunkin' Donuts, probably the Boston cream pie as well.
The Boston cream pie donut.
Why are you getting coffee?
Then you go down to Florida, and that's where everybody who left New England, that's where they landed.
Right.
Yeah, they brought their shitty Dunkin' Donuts.
You're just like, you just go to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
The thing about Starbucks too is I think their food's disgusting. I don't know. It's overpriced. It's bad. I don't like that it just sits behind that glass. I don't think it's refrigerated. It's just, I don't know why they are as big as they are, and they are huge. So I looked up the sales. Dunkin' Donuts. This was from 2017. It's very hard to get new coffee numbers. 2017, Dunkin' Donuts made 860 million. Starbucks made 22 billion. Billion. They're so much bigger.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I want to know what small little orange county that is in.
I was just gonna say in California,
a little
who's
outlier
there?
Yes.
There's a pocket of Red Sox fans.
Yeah, there's no Starbucks and one Dunkin' Donuts, and they took over society.
Yeah.
You know what's funny too? I looked up this, and there wasn't a really clean chart, but in all the states that are traditionally very red and poor, Starbucks dominates. You would think because Dunkin' Donuts is so much cheaper and less pretentious, but I don't know. All right. The third thing that really bothers me about what's happening in this country. Restaurants. Did you know that restaurants are closing left, right, and center? Did you know that bankruptcies because of rising costs and labor and food and rent are taking away all our greatest restaurants? Hold on. The image is going to come up in a second. Talk amongst us. Have you guys ever been to a Red Lobster?
Can you please not call them the greatest restaurants? Because let's face it, Red Lobster is as just wonderful.
I've never been to a Red
Lobster. Lobster roll is. I couldn't put that in the top 10 of something where I've eaten in the last my life. So
Red Lobster, really?
They're on the list.
I've never been to a Red Lobster.
I've been to one.
And
Georgia.
You mean living in New England, you don't go to Red Lobster for your lobster roll?
Do we even have a Red Lobster around here? I don't think we even do.
It should be illegal. So restaurant chains and operators this year are on track to declare the most bankruptcy in decades outside of 2020. When there was, I don't know, guys, do you remember the global pandemic? Nobody could go outside.
Yeah.
A lot of restaurants closed there, but it's like sort of fast casual chains like Red Lobster, Hawker's Asian Street Food, I guess is a thing. Tijuana Flats, Roti. So, but here's the thing, these are closing, but at the same time, 37,000 new restaurants open up every single day. This is a heartbreaking thing because I love nothing more in life than sitting down, being served food and alcohol, and then not having to clean up, just getting up and leaving. That is just, to me, one of the greatest things. But going out to a restaurant is cost prohibitive to the point of absurdity now. Everything is so goddamn expensive.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And it doesn't matter where you are. It's not even like location matters. So I live in upstate in Greenville, South Carolina, and I was just in Denver on a business thing, a retreat thing. The cost of food in Denver was the same as the cost of food here for, I'm going to say maybe the quality wise, super high, very good. No price difference. No price difference. Like major metropolitan area versus where I live. Like you'd think it'd be like, over here it'd be a lot cheaper, right? Because I'm kind of in the country or small. No, it doesn't work that way. And moving from New York down here, I thought the same thing. I'm like, it's going to be dramatically different in cost of price. It's not. You still, if you go to a really good steakhouse down here, you're still going to spend 55 to 65 bucks on a steak, which still blows my mind, which I don't understand because it's not like I went outside and picked out the cow, but the prices aren't any different. So
interesting. Yeah.
You would think so. I've thought about this in terms of what's going to happen in the future. For a long time, cost of living was so different in the United States, like the middle, traditionally be a lot cheaper than the coasts. But now, since we're all sort of working, a lot of people are working remotely. I always thought like at some point it's going to catch up. And I think maybe that has to do with it because, house prices haven't. House prices in the Northeast and on the West Coast are still absolutely ridiculous. But I think you're right. Food, it's expensive everywhere. And that sucks. Yeah. I used to work at a restaurant in 2003 and 2004. We were the cool martini bar. And we had the $10 martinis, which was like out fucking outrageous. I used to feel bad at the end of the night when I gave people their bills because I was like, you're not ready for this. Now a $10 drink is fucking cheap.
Oh,
what happened?
$10 drink's a beer.
Oh, that's another thing. Oh, yeah.
It's a beer. When did a beer become $8?
Oh, yes. You used to be able to go.
No, not at the ballpark. At the bar.
This is how you know that they're just fucking with us because a Miller Lite and a beer is still all right. Let's call it $5. A Miller Lite at Fenway is going to be like $17, and they're just doing that because they can because you want to get drunk. You know what I mean? It's it bothers me to my soul. So at that level, you go fuck the restaurants, but we can't lose restaurants. They've already taken so much from us.
So I love new restaurants. I think I'm happy to be a huge foodie. So for me, I try to steer away from most of the chain places. And I like going after the smaller places. Personally, I think it's lower crowds means better control over their product, better control over the inventory. Yeah. If they don't have it available, they can't put it on a menu. Versus like if you go to a lot of the chain places, they've had the same menu for 14 years. Yeah, which means their stock in the back. God only knows how if that inventory in the back. Yeah. I'm not going to say it's 14 years old because I don't work at these places, but I am going to say that if it's the same, if you've been playing with the same menu for that long, like you've got to stock the inventory. If you're a smaller restaurant, you have a better quality product. You're like, no, we're out of halibut today, so therefore it's not on the menu. So I happen to be one of those fans of the. I steer away from the chain places and I go more after the kind of the smaller, more niche, farm to table, pretentious, if you will.
Yeah, it's pretentious buffoonery, but
it's better food, though. It's better food.
It's better food.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a misnomer here because big part of the article said that restaurants are prioritizing growth over profit. But what they don't explain is that next step, which is that if you're a single restaurant, you don't get to take advantage of price breaks at quantity. So the only way to do that is to open up new stores to franchise out because you kind of need 50 stores to take advantage of the price cost breaks that you get at quantity. So it's not as if I think that these people are being necessarily just greedy and opening restaurants to open restaurants. They need to make a profit. And it seems the only way to do that is to open more stores. So it's not a sustainable model, obviously.
Right.
All right. Well, there's one more story, a news sports story. No, not everybody cares about sports, but I will say this. This is they frame this as a feel-good story. Father and son duo for the first time in the NBA. LeBron and Bronny were on the court at the same time last night. I watched Bronny having an unbelievable night. 0 points, 0 for 2 field
goals. Look at those
stats. I mean, Jesus, the guy is crushing it. I don't want to destroy a rookie, but he's the 55th overall pick who would normally be playing in the G League or not make the roster at all. But he's LeBron's kid. And here's the thing. Nepotism exists all over the place. And usually we don't get too worked up about it. But this is a very obvious public Nepo baby case. And I don't dislike LeBron. As a matter of fact, I think he's a model athlete. He's with his high school sweetheart. He seems to be a loving, doting father. There's never any off the court issues. He's a self-made billionaire. He started a school. He's a great guy. But this... This is a bridge. I watched him. Bronny does not belong on an NBA court. Just size-wise, they say 6'2". He looks 5'5" out there. I mean, it was not good. How do you feel?
Yeah, but how are the ticket sales?
What's that?
I said, but how are the ticket sales?
I think the Lakers are going to sell out regardless.
Yeah. So let's face it. At the end of the day, sports is a business like everything else. Yeah. And if you know that you can sell out the crowd early in the year. I mean, again, it's the Lakers. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you know what you need to do from a marketing standpoint in order to make things work. And if you're going to spend your second round draft pick for you know, a legend for the legend's kid.
Yeah.
Why not? Right? If it's going to put seats if it's going to put butts in the seats, and he plays for 3 minutes and doesn't score,
right?
Yeah.
No problem.
No, nobody cares. And again, no 55th pick has ever gotten this much publicity or sold. I don't know how many tickets, but it is a spectacle. Like, I don't give a shit about the Lakers, but I watched last night because I wanted to see the first father-son duo on the court.
Right.
So it worked for me. And then like this Nepo baby thing, we know it happens all the time. You know, no one was too up in arms on the right anyway when Trump filled his cabinet and his fucking kids and their spouses. But then LeBron gets his kid picked at 55 and it seems to be some issue. Who gives a shit? You know?
I agree. You know, sometimes I wish I had a different last name, but you know, it doesn't really work that way. So I yell at my dad, I'm like, damn it, Dad, I told you should have.
I know. Right? Yeah. You could have been someone. I could have been.
I could have been someone. Instead, I'm a LinkedIn celebrity.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Right.
Speaking of which, the dad thing, he's not allowed to call his father dad on the court, and they talk to each other a lot, like running defenses. So he has to call him Braun on the court, which I think it's a little.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's a good idea. Let's keep
go get Tatum
as professional as possible.
Right.
You know, and we'll wait for the beatings until we get home.
Yeah,
that's paramount in the NBA. You got to keep it very, very responsible.
Very, very
all right, listen. Now's the portion where we sort of get to know the CEO. Here's my thinking on this. They say that we like to do business with those we know, like, and trust. And I think the only way to know, like, and trust somebody at their core is to know what they like in terms of music, movies, and literature, because this is a classy program. So I asked you to answer these 3 questions. Your 3 favorite bands, your 3 favorite movies, and your 3 favorite books. Number 1, I don't think there's any arguing. They're not in my list, but I think the physical manifestation of all things rock and roll is Led Zeppelin. I think they are the perfect rock and roll band in every conceivable way. But tell me why you love Led Zeppelin.
Because I never get sick of them. I love classic rock. I think you're talking about probably one of the top 3 to top 5 greatest guitarists that ever walked the planet. Yeah. Just there's not a single song that I hear that I'm like, this song sucks. Or that a single song you listen to and I'm like, I never want to hear this song again. Mm-hmm. I've heard The Levee Breaks 130,000 times. And if it was on right now, I would still turn it up and listen to it.
Yep.
I went to see a Led Zeppelin tribute band a couple years ago at this point, and that was spectacular. You can't sit down, like, listen, I'm too young to actually have gone to a Led Zeppelin show. But even the tribute band shows, it's a wall of sound. I think the mark of a great band is if you can play for 3 hours and everybody knows everything. Led Zeppelin could play for 6 and you know every single song. They're ungoddamn believable. Do you want to hear my my Zeppelin rant though in the public sphere? Of course you do. Ready? This is Rolling Stone magazine. This is all we have, right? In terms of great publications of that goes back 60 years. Okay. They call Robert Plant the #1 frontman of all time. I would agree with that. He's fucking fantastic. The hair, the banshee scream, he just looks like a frontman, acts like a frontman. They called John Bonham the greatest drummer of all time. I don't think you can argue with that. He's a fucking madman. They called Jimmy Page the 3rd greatest guitarist of all time. So you get 1, 1, and 3. Yes. Yep. Then they called John Paul Jones the 14th best bassist. All right, sure, you can go. So you have 1, 1, 3, and 14 is the 4 member. Then they called Led Zeppelin the 14th best band of all time. How is that possible?
Yeah, it doesn't mathematically make sense. Yeah.
How can you be less of the sum of your parts?
Oh, who's voting on that and who beat them?
Well, that's why I don't read Rolling Stone, because I don't really typically, and they share a name with a band that's terrible too. So that's
he also hates the Rolling Stones. It's a common theme.
No. But no, I'm with you, Chris, on Led Zeppelin though. You just can't. Every song, every time it comes on, it's just as good as the last time you heard.
Yeah, I've got a station named Led Zeppelin on my in my Pandora.
Oh yeah,
everybody should. You know what's great about Led Zeppelin too? They were formed in 1968. So before any of us were born, I assume, or listening to music, but it still permeates, time and space. It doesn't matter. They're just the best rock and roll band of all time.
Yeah. Young, old, doesn't matter what age you are, And
they encapsulate everything that's great about rock and roll, which is like, they're loud. The lyrics are fucking kind of dumb, but it doesn't matter because they're great. One guy ODs, and I'm not saying that's it's, you kind of have to.
You're going to have that, just to,
it adds some legitimacy.
Everybody else, right?
Yeah, and then instead of replacing them, they're like, "That's it. We're never going to be Led Zeppelin without John Bonham." So it's over, which is sort of a beautiful thing too.
It's nice too. It's like every song is different, and it's different from everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
Like it's not often you hear a song, you're like, I wonder if this is Led Zeppelin.
No, no one sounds.
It's very distinct.
With the exception of Greta Van Fleet. Have you heard Greta Van Fleet? They're a bunch of young kids essentially cosplaying Led Zeppelin. And I got to tell you, it's pretty good. If you're going to copy any band, you might as well do Led Zeppelin.
You better bring it though.
Take a listen. I got to tell you, it's the same thing. The Banshee scream, the weirdo lyrics, the just loud droning guitar. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing. One of the greatest things on the internet is at the Kennedy Center Honors, Heart does Stairway in front of Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and John Paul Jones. Have you seen it? Ungoddamn believable.
I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if we weren't on a show, I told you to log off and go watch it and come back. But as soon as we get off this show, go watch it. Heart crushes Stairway to Heaven. All right. We're moving forward a few decades because your second band, I got to tell you, I'm not very familiar with them.
No.
OAR or Of a Revolution. All right. Tell us about this.
Just great music. Good singer, good originality, just great jam band to kind of listen to. I want to call them a jam band. I don't even know what you call them. I happen to be like wicked eclectic taste in music. Like I'm all over the map. Again, you go from Led Zeppelin to OAR. I've seen them live a couple of times. There's not a single song I've heard by them that I'm like, this sucks. I just genuinely really like it. It's a good band to kind of just chill and listen to.
I think the jam band reggae things, because I listened to Spotify's top OAR songs, and I hadn't heard any of them, but it does feel like, yes, I think jam band and reggae is sort of floaty. Where are they from?
Maryland, I think.
Maryland.
I'm pretty sure the lead singer's from Maryland.
And they came out in 1996. How old are you?
47.
Okay, so that's like prime music age for.
I heard them in the late 90s, and I remember listening to it being like, wow, this is pretty solid. And then
Tom, you ever hear them?
No, I'm not.
Other
than just hearing them, for the show here, but that's.
The third band, though, sounds. I love looking at this. Is one of those things.
My jam too, Chris. I've seen them live a bunch of times in college. Hoobastank, I think, opened up for them 2 of the years that I saw them.
Oh my God!
You talked about them, but this is like one of my all-time bands too.
So I got introduced to 311 in college in Los Angeles in 1990. When the fuck was I out there? 96, something like that. Yeah. And they had just launched the album that really kind of hit. It was there had no name on it, but that was a little bit down and all those things. But the funny thing is, I had a buddy of mine who was a huge fan of them, and he got me listening to their first like 2 or 3 albums. And I remember listening to them, and I was like, this shit is good. It's got a good beat, good bass. There was only 3 or 4 of them in the band at the time, and we saw them play at a tiny bar on like Hollywood Boulevard or something like that. And I just remember being like, these guys are awesome. And then their new album came out after that, and then they went big, and then all of a sudden, then you have to like pay money to go see them. And even then I've seen them, I don't even know how many times. And just every show was just awesome. Good band. Yeah. They've definitely evolved over the time, which is pretty cool as well.
You don't think there would be a lot of reggae influenced bands from Omaha, Nebraska, but here we are. This is another thing that freaks me out, and this happens to me all the time on the show, and I talked about it yesterday, is when I look up bands who were big when I was, in my teens and early 20s, and then I pull up modern pictures of them, and they look like this. I'm like, holy shit, we're all so goddamn old. We're right on the brink of death. How is it possible that 311 looks like this now?
It's hysterical because, again, I don't know why I put it down, because one of my top bands of all time is Pearl Jam. Again, high school in the 90s, right? So it kind of had that grunge thing going. Have you ever seen a picture of Eddie Vedder then versus Eddie Vedder now?
Yes, and it's horrifying.
I know. You look at him now, you're like, it's like a, he's like a well put together guy.
He looks like a cool grandfather.
I know. That's not, you had to leave you had to clean yourself up a little bit there. But back in the day, no, did not look like that.
The first time it happened to me, and I'm not a huge Metallica fan or anything, but like I'd gone, I don't know, a few years without seeing Metallica, and then I saw Kurt Hammett, and he had all his hair was gray, and he looked like a grandmother, and I was like, "What is that?
What's going on here?" Yeah.
Oh my god! But again, the horrifying thing is if they look like that, so do I. But I'm in some sort of denial. But when it stares me in my face, like, how the fuck is this 311?
Yeah.
They look like middle management at some paper company. Horrifying. All right, but how can anybody hate Down and All Mixed Up? They were I have a friend that's very into 311, so every time I hear him, it's funny how music makes you think about things in it. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of nostalgia, you have got a fucking nostalgic and 10 stars, right? I mean,
if anybody, I don't understand. If there's not a single human being on the planet who's seen that movie who doesn't love it. And I did meet somebody who actually hasn't seen the movie, and I almost got a little I didn't know what to do at first.
Yeah.
And I gave a reference to it. I was like, I don't know what it was going it's 1.21 gigawatts, right?
Yeah.
And the look on his face was just
like blank. Wow,
and I was like, I know what you're thinking. What the hell is a gigawatt? And he literally just had the flux capacitor. No, am I not?
Nothing.
And I'm like, have you not seen? Oh,
and
it was one of those I don't know if I can continue this conversation now.
How old was this person?
27.
See, this is the thing. This goes back. Yes. So when I was younger, I never understood because I was an idiot why super old guys. It was during the Anna Nicole Smith thing. Remember, she married an 85-year-old billionaire and then he died. And I was like, okay, I get it. You want to bang her, but what do you talk about? But then it occurred to me that they're not talking. But if I was to ever be single, you can't date anybody at our age who never owned a CD because you're going to constantly be running into this stuff. You will be making references that they won't understand. And you'll be like, what the fuck? And they'll be like, oh, that, of course, you weren't born until 20 years after this movie came out.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. But how do you not know about
I don't care. Watch the movie.
Yeah.
Not the third one. Watch the movie.
Watch the movie.
I've seen Gone with the Wind and fucking The Wizard of Oz, and that shit came out 50 years before I was born. Like, you have a little,
Oh, I gotta tell you, I've got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they've seen this movie a dozen times.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yeah.
My 11-year-old loves it.
Right. Well, I think as parents, it's our job, right, to have specific movies like their kids have to watch them.
Yeah.
And when they get certain ages, you got to watch these things.
Speaking of people that don't like this, so on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 96 critic and an 84 audience. But the 4% of critics that don't like this, what are you trying to prove? This is one of those movies like, oh, you're a tough guy because you don't like Back to the Future. Are you, shut up.
Yeah.
So this is my thing about what kind of sucks about Michael J. Fox is sometimes people die and it's sad. Like when Prince died, it was sad, and when Tom Petty died, it was sad, and Bowie. But they were not cut down in their prime. They had given out all they were going to do as far as unbelievable music, right? Michael J. Fox was cut down in his prime. He had much more to do. Like Teen Wolf was unbelievable. Back to the Future, he had a whole bunch of movies. Like that is a very sad thing, that we lost him because he was Hollywood royalty,
Yeah.
I'll say this too. I typically will go back and watch what Siskel and Ebert say about these movies because I love those two. Siskel and Ebert loved this movie. And Siskel kept going on about how weird it is conceptually, the idea that you would go back and meet your parents in high school and what that would be like. And I don't really think I ever thought of that when I'm watching this, but that would be weird. Like going back and meeting your parents in high school.
Yeah.
Especially after watching that movie.
Especially if she's kind of into you. Like,
yeah, that's really weird. Yeah, that would be, yeah.
Let's keep going.
Like, okay.
This was a comedy movie that touched on incest. You don't get a lot of those. This might be the best one. All right. The second movie, Tin Cup. Oh, Kevin Costner. Boy, did he have a 10-year period where he was on fire. What do you love about Tin Cup?
Golf. It's hysterical. I'm a big golfer and I love it. And I think it was also one of those, I had to think of funny movies that are great talking points. But as a golfer, you've got Caddyshack, you've got Happy Gilmore, and then you move forward a little bit, you got Tin Cup. So typically you're going to go one of those. And let's face it, all three of those are just fucking awesome. These are just
Bagger Vance. What's that one?
Yeah, what about the Legend of Bagger Vance?
Yeah.
Oh, stop it. You put him on mute. So the Vance. It's about a caddy. Enough. No, it's hysterical. And it's I don't know, it's just funny as hell. He does a great job in it. She's great. No, the fact that they didn't make it like, where that he comes out of nowhere and wins the championship. Mm-hmm. But he literally sabotages himself at the end just to like prove a point. And I thought that was pretty cool because let's face it, anyone who plays golf, that's basically what you do for 18 holes.
Yeah.
I'll say this about Kevin Costner too. He is an actor. Like people like Jack Nicholson are always Jack Nicholson. Al Pacino's always Al Pacino. Well, in the later stages of life, De Niro's always De Niro. Kevin Costner is an actor because this role is way different. And I just looked up like his hit streak was unbelievable. He did Field of Dreams, JFK, The Untouchables, Bodyguard, Dances with Wolves. I even liked Waterworld. That guy was on fire for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now he's worth $400.
Didn't make my list, but it's like one of my favorites. It just happens to be his Bull Durham. It happens to have.
I didn't fucking mention Bull Durham.
Bull Durham's great, yeah.
Siskel and Ebert also loved it. They called it a love poem to golf. So you're right. I mean, it's just universally beloved. Although the critic score not that good, 72%, 65 on the audiences. Don Johnson's in it. That should be at least 50 points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
then they did say it was also Rene Russo's finest work.
So I don't know about that. But it was pretty good. So, what's really funny is I was reading an article, and I'll be quick with this one, is that they have all these professional golfers who are actually in the movie. And so when they started to try to recruit, if you will, the professional golfers to be in the movie, they had to get in touch with their agents, and their agents were saying like, well, they get $5,000 per appearance or these extreme numbers. And the producers and directors were like, there's no way we can afford to do this. So what they did is the producers and directors reached out to the professional golfers' wives and said, hey, do you want to come to an event and meet Kevin Costner, Don Johnson, Rene Russo, and basically the cast of this movie? And naturally, all the players' wives are like, are you fucking kidding me? Absolutely. So when they recruited the players' wives, the players all said, hell yeah, I want to be in this movie. And that's how they did it.
Unbelievable.
Very smart.
Wow. That kind of segues into your next movie because I watched the whole behind the scenes thing on this. So I have some insider information on Snatch. So did you know that Brad Pitt was so taken by Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, which is Guy Ritchie's movie previous to this? Yeah. He read this script, asked Guy Ritchie if there's any way he could be in it. He wasn't going to take Brad Pitt money. Guy Ritchie was like, no, but then he reworked the entire script to work Brad Pitt's character in it and then focus the entire movie on that.
And it is the best Brad Pitt movie, period.
Which is a bold statement because Brad Pitt has had some bangers.
This is the best though. I mean, you can argue it. You're wrong, but it's the best. I mean, you can't understand half what he's saying through the whole movie. It's great.
I think half is being generous.
And this is definitely a movie you can watch over and over again, and it's still just as good as the last time you saw it. Like,
So the same thing happened with Sean Connery. Sean Connery loved Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. He had a meeting with Guy Ritchie, loved everything that he'd seen, and he goes, "You can't afford me," and walked out of the meeting. Whereas Brad Pitt goes, "You can't afford me, but I'm going to take way less to be in this thing," which just proves that he's a much better human being.
Yeah.
Also, they paid $1 million to Madonna for the song Lucky Star, and then Guy Ritchie ends up marrying her. So that worked out. He went from an absolute nobody who could get no funding for any movie to being one of the best directors in Hollywood, marrying Madonna and hanging out with Brad Pitt for free. Yeah. The other thing they did is spent a lot of money on Benicio del Toro, who is a giant pain in the ass. So Guy Ritchie has a very specific vision for his movies, and Del Toro would listen to him and then just do some wacky ass shit on screen. And he couldn't do anything it was like so it was just a nobody running into Hollywood stars going, "This is going to be great. See, Brad Pitt's great." And Del Toro was out of his fucking mind.
Yeah.
74%. Not a lot of people like Snatch. Well, only 3/4 of people.
That's right. Those people don't hang out with me.
You can't go by. See, that's why you can't go by critics. They don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah. Brad Pitt did an Irish gypsy accent, according to it could have been anything. You can't understand a goddamn thing he's saying.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many lines in it. It's just like, oh, the gibbos. Oh, I hate the fucking pikeys. Everybody says it. It's just such a good movie. Such a good movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. There's nothing in it for me. Just be cool. See the movie.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a better Brad Pitt movie.
Fight Club, but that's kind of.
Yeah, it could be in contention. What about Ocean? He was very good in Ocean's 11.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But not as good.
Better than Snatch.
Not as good as
next appearance you make, I'm gonna have to do a list of. I didn't like Interview with the Vampire, but he's very attractive in that. No homo. He's just like a gorgeous, because he looks like a very pretty lady. Although that movie's terrible.
Yeah. Could have been better.
Brad Pitt. All right. I'm going to think.
Yeah,
All right, let's go.
We'll have to do a Brad Pitt list of movies and rating them or something. I don't know.
we're gonna have to now. We've
narrow down three movies.
He's prolific. Moneyball was very good.
Great story.
Okay, anyway, I guess we stop thinking about Brad Pitt movies. Let's go to your books.
All right.
I
like business books.
You like business books, yeah.
I like business books. I try to read, years ago, I'm kind of like a big reader, but I get bored in novels because, well, they're boring. Yeah. I can't take anything out of them, so I put it down, I forget about it, and I ended up just giving them to other people. So I like business books. I can get something out of it. I take notes. It helps me theoretically stay sharp. So
I'm with you too. I don't like fiction. I want to take something away. I want some real world applications of the shit I read. So these are the key takeaways from this, from what I understand. Go beyond satisfaction. So you want to blow people away. Consistency is key. And you want to take a customer-centered approach. I feel that that's wraps up pretty good.
I think it wraps it up perfectly.
When did you read this book?
First time I read it was 2004 or something like that. I've read it probably 15 times.
Oh.
It's mandatory reading for anybody that's ever worked for my company. We talk about it all the time. I've got quotes from it. I have a whole Ravens fan culture thing that we talk about, but I'm not going to call it like the company Bible, per se, but it's as close to anything that I've ever read or worked on. That's like, if you want to revert one thing back, like consistently go back to Raving fans. And I worked with a sales guy a long time ago who was very aggressive, very assertive, borderline unprofessional with everybody he dealt with. He was the kind of, he could transact anything, but most transactions came with a live hand grenade. And I told him, I was like, you need to read this book. You need to calm down. And bought it for him, gave it to him. He said he read it twice over the weekend. And I literally watched this guy overnight change his persona and how he handled with people. The amount of money and the amount of stuff, like the way he could close business after that was insane. And he just realized that, like, wow, all I got to do is treat people just a little bit better and not call them, a-holes. And they'll actually like, that really worked. And I was like, it's just the little things, buddy. It's just the little things. Yeah. And it blew him away, and it's really kind of cool. So it's a highly recommended to everybody.
600,000 copies sold, according to the top, is a lot when it comes to books, specifically business books. Those don't move as much as a Stephen King novel. So it's pretty impressive.
They don't.
No. The next book I have read, I had it, but I let somebody borrow it. Nobody ever gives books back. Have you noticed that? Have you ever lent a book to somebody? Fucking forget about it. It's like lending money. Don't expect to get it back.
Yeah.
Atomic Habits. You can't argue with this. My big takeaway was the aggregation of marginal gains. Like just 1%. If you do 1% better every day, you're gonna get 100% better in 100 days. So why do you love Atomic Habits?
I talk about habits a lot with people because a lot of times when people think about habits, you think about bad habits.
Right.
You don't refer to good habits as habits. You refer to them as like routines. Like every day you wake up, you get a cup of coffee, you eat a croissant, you et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. I said on my front porch, I meditate. Those are my morning routines. They're not my morning habits. Biting your fingernails, smoking cigarettes, drinking problems. Your problems are habits. So when you reframe it into thinking about the way all the good things you do are habits, all of a sudden you're like, wow. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, I do have habits. So it's a way that you can mentally go into this idea of when changing habits isn't that hard as you think about. The other part I like a lot is about identity is, there's a section of the book. He's like, someone offers you a cigarette. Some people say no, and the answer no could be, no, thanks, I'm quitting, or I'm not in the mood, or no, I don't want one, versus like, I don't smoke.
Right.
So that's like, because I think, knowing my age, like we probably all smoked at one point, it was encouraged back when you're kind of like, there's a thing to do. But quitting smoking, when someone offered me a cigarette, I was like, no, I don't smoke. Yeah. And I can't even think about it anymore to this day. So I think, when you formulate that identity of, the persona, if you will, it's a lot simpler to all of a sudden realize that, like, man, like, you know, you can form good habits quickly if you understand, you know, then he puts in formulas, which I really like also. I've taken my time reading it. It's mostly because I go back and I write things down and I try to take some things from it, but it's been one of those ones that it's been tough for me to turn down. I'm in them. I find myself like literally like bookmarking pages and reminding myself of things that if I get caught in a bind or something's not working, I'm like, okay, why don't we just, you know, let's see if I can, you know, change up my habits a little bit over here. And then all of a sudden things will start to get back on track for me. So I've taken a lot out of it.
Yeah. I like the idea. It's sort of like you can't control the results necessarily, but you can control your habits, which then control the results. So it's an interesting way to think about it, but it's kind of true, I think.
Yeah, if something's not working for you, what are you still doing? All right. It's literally a definition of insanity, right? Try the same thing over and over again. It doesn't work versus like, okay, you should maybe do something different, but I'm just saying. But if something's consistently working for you, it's like that idea of like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, augment it, innovate it, add a little to it. But
get more out of it.
You know, find that formula. And if you ask for like professional, like anybody's ever been a professional athlete or really played high level sports, like you have a very specific routine or habits, if you will, that every single day you show up to practice. And if you ask them what they do the same thing all the time. And it works. So
Yep.
There you go.
I think humans are just weird creatures. Like I heard somebody say, or maybe it was in a book, they were like, we don't chase happiness necessarily, we chase comfort. So, but what makes people feel comfortable sometimes isn't the best thing. Like if you grew up in an abusive household, there's some comfort in that, as much as it seems like it would destroy you. But the happiness is less important than being comfortable. And I think a lot of cases, that's why we stick to bad habits. So that's my
confused happiness with comfort.
That too. That too. All right. Your third book, which I believe I listened to, Building a Story Brand. Why do you love this one?
Because every good movie, every good book, every good story has a character that is not the main character. That is a integral part of the way it works between what they call like the hero and the villain. And the reason I love this is because I'm in a service-oriented business. I don't build anything. I don't produce any product. I didn't, make this pen. But I provide a service that is highly necessary out there that people need. And when you read this, the thing I love about it is if you're in the service-oriented business, you're phenomenal what you job. You don't need to take the credit. Actually, most of the part, you don't want it because you're just doing everything it needs to do. So the great example is Star Wars, which I really hope everybody watching this has seen Star Wars. If not, watch Back to the Future and then watch Star Wars. That's two examples. Star Wars, Yoda, arguably everyone's favorite character, right? Yoda's pivotal part of the story, but not the story. The story is Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. Where's Yoda come in? Yoda's the one who connects everything in there together, makes the story flow. So you've got this love of Yoda, who is a main character, but definitely far from the main character of everything that's going on. The same as with Back to the Future, which is actually really interesting because you've got Doc Brown. Doc is not Marty McFly, who's the main character, right? Michael J. Fox. He's Marty McFly. He's the main character. And you've got all these other characters involved, and then you've got I would say like the villainous time, or he's trying to go through this thing with his father, get his father to hit on his mother, and all that kind of jazz. And in the middle of all that, you've got Doc Brown, who just kind of brings the story together, right? Yeah. Not a main character, very main in the whole plot line, but makes the credits as one of the main people. But there's all these characters that kind of build the story together. So that's what I think is really important, especially in business and especially in the service-oriented side of it. The story that you have to put together for people. If you're trying to be the Superman, right? Like, I don't want to be the Superman. I don't want to be like, oh, like, look what I did. Everybody, boom, boom, boom. And like, I'm in the recruiting business where really what I do is I facilitate, I coordinate, I take all this stuff and I do all this like middleman work to it that really is critical to make this stuff happen. But at the end of the day, I introduced you to this person and that worked out and I had a lot to do with it. But, that's when that works out, it's because of you great people, not because of me. So I think it's a very humbling way to look at, depending on what business you're in. I happen to really like it, and I think it's one of those things that when I've run my business that way of making sure people identify the fact that, like, listen, we're not Luke, we're obviously not Darth Vader, but like, be Yoda, right? Be the idea of like, I'm not going to fight this person for you, but I'm going to give you as much knowledge as I possibly can, but it's up to you to do what you can with it. So that's,
and I think that's sort of what you're saying is the central tenet to the book, which I think is sort of make the customer the hero. Isn't that the thing? You're helping them become the hero.
Yes. And then everything in business, right? Because the customer can be the hero and the villain can be the market, right? The villain can be your, high prices in restaurants or something like that. But there's always something that's out there that can be painted around. But it's like this idea of like, when you're in a service-oriented business, in my opinion, I think you're going to be better if you stay humble and understand that you are not the hero, because I didn't make this pen. I introduced you to this pen, and this pen may be the thing that saved your life.
Right.
Probably not, but you get what I'm saying here. But but then I didn't make it. So I think when you kind of do that, all of a sudden people are like, it's a good, like, yeah, you're right, you didn't make it, but man, thanks for the introduction.
Right.
I
think the other two takeaways too,
an invoice, which is helpful. So
there's a big emphasis too on clarity in the book. They're big fans of making things simple, and then focusing on transformation. So very business booky, but again, oftentimes with business books, as much as they appear sort of self-helpy, they're hard to argue with. They're very rarely wrong.
Yeah. And not to be also too is like, what am I going to put down, like Catcher in the Rye?
Right.
I mean, which is great.
I will say I do like that book, but it's about nothing. It's like a Seinfeld episode. Nothing really happens. Yeah, it's just,
I know.
there's not a lot of
I get it.
takeaways.
He leaves Exeter and travels, and cool, good to read, but not
call everybody a phony, hang out with a prostitute. All right, I'm listening.
Just not sure what I can do with it, but I got it.
Right, I understand. All right. So this is the point. We should talk a little bit of business. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to cut up your answer into a video, and I'm going to share it. Ready?
Let's go.
What makes Averity the best staffing company to work for in North America?
Culture. And I don't mean culture like, going back to the Boeing thing. I don't mean culture like free sandwich Wednesdays or the in-house masseuse or Hawaiian shirt Fridays. The culture of our organization is about service. It's about just like understanding that we're in a service-oriented business and out-service the competition. So number one is always going to be provide an unparalleled experience with everybody we interact with, but also that goes with the way we treat each other. Respect, communication, collaboration, teamwork, and all for one for all mentality that is really, truly embedded into the business, embedded into payouts, embedded into the culture of the organization, where, it's about as big as a family as anyone's ever felt. And it's just, I think, and also, not to be worried about my management style, there's a lot for it, where I am one of those people who I want you to be the best at what you do and not focus on your weaknesses. And I think I've lost people like, oh, you're good at what you do, but you're really going to stay focused on your weaknesses to get those better. Fuck that, to be totally honest with you. I'm like, you know what? Let your weaknesses be your weaknesses. Find other people that can help you with your weaknesses, but find that thing that you're awesome at and be amazing at it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I love to do with everybody is when I find people, I'm like, you're awesome at this, you're going to be better than you thought. And what I love to do is the way I manage people is give them the opportunity to take what they're like, their passion and that fire that they have and run with it and be like, listen, this is what you're going to do here. And this is the way you're going to be successful at it. And to be honest with you, they're like, I've never worked at a place where I love because I can just be myself and I can do what I want to do. And it's awesome. So that's the relatively shorter answer on one of many things I think what makes us the greatest staffing company to work for.
I think that makes sense. And I don't want to dumb this down. I think there's obviously two schools of thought. One is that you have to get better at your weaknesses, but we're from New England. We worship Bill Belichick. What they used to always say about him is that in his heyday, he put his players in the best position to succeed. So we didn't have Julian Edelman running goal routes, and he didn't have Randy Moss doing those. It wasn't a slot receiver. Yep. So it is kind of like double down on your strengths. Like let's not bother focusing on what you're bad at. Let's focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
This is your website, yes?
Yes, it is.
You want to tell people where to go and what to do if they want more of you and Averity?
Averity team. So you can see the company, Averity, and pretty simple, team.com, averityteam.com. The reason the team is in there is because we are a true team-oriented, team-based environment where it's no matter who you talk to, we all have each other's backs, and you can talk to any single one of us, and all of us know everything that's going on. So there's no account ownership, there's no client ownership, there's no candidate ownership, there's nothing like that. It's literally everybody working together to get things done together. So averityteam.com is our website. We were based in New York forever. You know, I think this, as the story goes, everyone knows, 2020 hit and that was that. And then we all went remote and have really continued to thrive, no matter where our given location is. So it's still able to work together as a team and talk to as a team. A lot of clients that we have now, they used to have offices in New York, have gone remote. If they have offices in New York, it's a different hybrid model these days. So we've definitely innovated and kind of rolled and evolved with the time. So we were one of those old school, in the office 5 days a week from X to Y, whatever the time zone were, on 36th and 5th, and now we're the fully remote national audience.
You must have saved a shit ton of money with the New York rent prices, huh?
Actually, it's the official line item on my P&L statement is shit ton of money.
I think so.
No,
I don't want to tell you how to run your business,
Yeah.
but you could take that budget and allocate it to free Sandwich Wednesdays, and it could not do anything but help the culture further. I know it's already great, but I'm telling you, nice tuna melt on a Wednesday you don't have to pay for.
Hey, listen, just don't get it from Red Lobster.
I got to get over to Red Lobster, although I'd have to drive 100 miles. Well, one, they're going bankrupt, and two, I live in Massachusetts. I don't want frozen lobster for. Anyway, listen, you've been a great guest. Do me a favor. Can you stick around to the green room for a couple minutes while we wrap things up? How was this, by the way? Did you have, was it fun talking about Red Lobster and Back to the Future? Light incest comedies?
I had a great time. It's always fun. You got to get energy, man. This is, I like this.
Good. Well, speaking of good energy, we'll have good energy tomorrow when we're back at 12 o'clock with the new guest. It's going to be fantastic. Not as good as this, though, obviously. All right. Bye, America. See you tomorrow.